Okay, we're ready to roll. This is Lori, and this is a pilot launch of potentially a new show called Tell Me Where You're Stuck. And I am super lucky to be joined by my first guest and superstar, Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Lori.
Thank you for joining me. The intention of our 30 minutes together really is to dive in as deeply and quickly as we can to any area in your life or business where you might be feeling the most stuck. And even if it's not the most stuck, it could just be stuck. And maybe where you would like to see some ease and maybe some decrease in stress happen. Do you have something in mind?
I do. I think this has been kind of coming up lately with my business, and that is my desire to put myself out there and be seen a little bit more. But, like most people, I'm not so much of a natural, on camera or.
Oh, you mean you don't want to be on camera? You should have told me that. No. Now's a good time to tell me that.
Interviews was great. I'm totally comfortable, but it's just like me speaking. I can see that it's a problem for me, and it's no wonder why I'm a photographer, where I'm literally behind the camera, not hiding, but just, for the past 10 years, I've just been behind the camera, letting my work speak for itself. And
right.
I know that I've come to a point in my business and my life, I'm in my mid-40s, I have something to say. And, I think I have a really powerful message with my business, and I'd like to vocalize that, but I really know that it's a struggle for me.
Yeah. This is really good. I appreciate all that you're sharing so far. You've already hit upon like 3 big areas to jump in. So I think the first place to jump in is you're a photographer, right? And so this concept of not hiding, and maybe this story of, maybe you have been carrying this story with you of being behind the camera is a place of hiding. And I might suggest a shift in that story, that being behind the camera is not a place of hiding. It's actually a place that you've been able to, up until this point in your life, say something and express something and bring something into the world. And it doesn't mean that that you're not feeling a pull right now to say something bigger, or to say something in a different way, or be seen in a different way. But I think first off, let's set the story straight.
Yeah.
And I don't want you holding on to the story that I'm a photographer and I've been behind the lens because I'm hiding.
Like it's something bad, like it's negative.
Yeah. You've been behind the lens because you wanted to be behind the lens, because from there, and now I'm going to have you tell me, this is sort of the second point of, what has your work been an expression of? Why have you been behind the lens? What have you been saying?
I have been saying that there's beauty everywhere, especially within women. And within my work, my photography, I photograph women, and I want to show and express through my work that women are beautiful at any stage in their life. And they can express it in their own way. We can look the way we want to look and feel good about ourselves.
Yeah. And part of the way we do this, and part of the way you're doing it right now, I'm getting like goosebumps as we're in this moment together, but part of the way that you're doing it right now is just with that simple shift we just had around your story, is that you were beautifully and powerfully behind the lens because you had something you were saying and something you were expressing. And do not leave this time together. I hope you won't, with the same story that you were hiding, because I think that story makes it even harder, and then puts even more pressure on you to be like, now I have something to say, and how am I going to do it? And what if it's not the right way? It becomes this big dragon that you have to slay.
Yes.
Versus you already have been saying something, and it's been really powerful and it's been really important, and you haven't been hiding. You're just now in a different state with yourself of, and now we'll sort of come to like part 3 of like, so what do you think is coming up inside of you in terms of how you might want to say it in a different way, or be seen with what you have to say in a different way?
I guess like what I just said about that I want women to come in and express their beauty in their own way, you know, and I want to share my story about how I felt, you know, it was hard for me to express who I was and, you know, my beauty and that I'm unique. And I want to give voice to those women that, that also want to do that and feel empowered.
Mm-hmm. And you're feeling a sense to do that in a more powerful or meaningful way than you have been?
Yeah, I guess, you know, looking back, not to discredit what I've been doing, that it has been powerful, but I think there's different layers to it. It's not just showing up to a shoot and having, you know, your photograph taken. It's a lot of things that leading up to it, about allowing women to feel good about themselves and then coming into the shoot as like a form of celebration.
So it's like there's more you can offer in the whole experience with you.
Yeah,
right?
Experience to be, you know, deeper and more.
Yeah. It's not just come in, change your clothes, do the makeup and take the pictures and hopefully, and not to discredit what happens there, right? Because it's huge. I've been on the other side of your camera. I've been lucky enough, and it's hugely meaningful and powerful. So do you have any kind of clarity or fantasy vision? Does anything come to mind, just even a little bit, when you think about what you could include that you're not including now?
Yeah, I've definitely thought about it, and I've definitely tried a few things, like a online little 7-day challenge to, you know, I called it like finding your beauty mix, you know, and so it gave them these little, and I hate the word challenge, you know, just little exercises for them to kind of get into what they think is beautiful about themselves, so they can have that as an anchor to come into the shoot, you know, if they want to feel like, oh, you know, this is all about me and my personality and what I want to highlight. Because I think someone would come in and think like, oh, you're just going to capture me and it's all about your vision. And it's not. It's really about them. So I want them to think about that.
I want to mirror back to a word that you used, which was meaningful. And I think deep would kind of go along with this work. The work that you feel compelled to do is to offer a woman an experience with you that is really deep. It's really less even about the pictures and the moment. And I would say it's even kind of very similar to the work I do, which is almost like shifting the deeper relationship that you're in with yourself. Maybe gifting a woman the opportunity to now see and feel a certain way about herself that maybe maybe that's been her place of hiding. She hasn't quite stepped into that yet.
Because society doesn't give us many opportunities or safe places to do that. You know, it's like we're constantly like, look this way, act this way. And I feel like I want to give them a safer environment or experience that will allow them to kind of just, you know, this is just about me and my beauty. And I don't have to, you know, apologize or, you know.
Yeah, I can fully own it and feel good about it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Owning your own beauty, that has been my kind of.
So what do you think is required? I'm going to ask you questions that I, you know, typically would ask or of a private client is, what do you think needs to shift for a woman in order to allow herself, give herself permission to, because it's not to say yes to you and to say yes to the experience that you want to create for her?
I think this is what I have experienced, and through working with you as well, is like, we're all looking for someone to give us permission. And it may be the case that we do need someone to give us permission. Maybe we're not quite there yet that we can say to ourselves, because that's scary, you know, because as women, oh, we need permission. We need permission to do this, to feel this way. And sometimes you do need to hear that, or you do need to walk into that safe space or speak to someone. And it's like, hey, you're allowed to own your own beauty. You know,
yeah.
That's something that's really sacred to you.
So I think this is something really important to your marketing story, because, and I think you probably do this already, but maybe this is an area to deepen your story around, you're obviously not going to attract all kinds of women. You're only going to attract a woman who's right where you just described, right? And that's truly your best woman for your kind of work. And that's also another piece of this entrepreneurship, you know, experience, is like, if we keep trying to it's not a numbers game. It's a, who's my best person and how do I serve them well? And so you're really looking for the woman who is like right on the cusp of like wanting to really give herself permission to now see herself a certain way. Yes. So take that too, I think, and think about like, maybe even as you're reading, whether it's your like content on your website or whatever it is, and it's like, is that the message that's coming through? Does that help?
For sure. Yeah. And it's like, they don't really know that that's what they're looking for, but as soon as they land on it,
yes,
the words will resonate with them. And
yeah. Oh. So I'm going to put you on the spot, because, you know, I have to, that's my thing. No one gets off easy. How did you do that? Maybe you could share a little bit about your own, like.
Yeah, I think it definitely had to do with my curly hair. You know, that had been like a pain point of mine, a story of like, you know, not feeling beautiful enough and not, you know, looking like everyone else. And I finally just had to accept it, you know, just, you know, there's a big, like, self-love is like a big buzzword. And I kind of was like, what does that even mean? That's huge, you know? And I think, you know, it was just too much, you know, like I kept hearing it. You have to love yourself. You have to love yourself. And I just am like, how do you even know what to do if that's not something
what does that even mean?
What does that even mean? Like, I've never, you know, that it's a foreign concept to me. So I just was like, okay, what is causing me pain, you know? And it was my struggle with my curly hair of not feeling beautiful enough and, you know, looking like everyone else. And I said, you know what? I have to stop this struggle. I have to stop this, like, fighting with my hair and not accepting it, because it's just a part of who I am, you know? Yeah. And I always remember something you said of like, how can you, like, nothing ever good comes from beating yourself up.
Yeah.
And
nothing good ever comes from making yourself feel bad.
Exactly. Yeah. And it stuck with me and resonated with me. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to let my having curly hair make me feel bad about myself, you know, because I thought maybe that's the first step to self-love, is accepting, you know, what I'm hating about myself, because hating something about yourself, there's no way you're going to get to self-loving yourself.
Right. And I think through our work together too, you sort of recognize that was really just an extension, a reflection of a deeper story of not feeling good enough. Right. And so I think once you start doing this deeper work of like this self-worth, self-love piece, that all of a sudden it does become easier to embrace things about yourself and to make choices from a different state. And the thing I want to remind you of, because you use the word had a lot, like I had to accept it, I had to, you know, whatever it is, love myself in this way. Actually, you didn't have to. You chose to. And I really want you to move forward with that new language, owning that story. You absolutely didn't have to. You decided, you know what? I'm going to love this about myself. This isn't going to be another sort of reflection of ways in which I just feel like in some way I'm not good enough. Yeah. So you doing that was like a huge moment of empowerment and a huge moment of shift for you.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So take me a little bit to all that we've discussed so far. Let's go back to the beginning in terms of what would you love to see happen as a result of either our time together or just of you kind of allowing yourself to evolve into a different state with your work? What do you want to feel easier, or what do you want to get better?
I think you touched upon like the messaging that I'm using to attract that woman that's just like ripe to, land on my page or wherever I am, social media, and be like, oh, this is more than an experience, and this is something that I am intrigued by. And then also,
so it's like having an easier time attracting just the right person for you.
Yes, exactly. Whether it be through my messaging or, whatever that may be.
Yeah. How do you feel a lot of the times when you're involved in sort of the work of your business? And I don't just mean, I actually don't mean doing the actual photo shoots, because I think that's your home base, like that's easy for you. I think more so like the marketing and the attracting and all of that. How's that feeling for you?
It feels hard and not like it flows.
Yeah.
There's this constant like start and stop and, I have to do this, where I would love it to be more of an expression of myself and me, just sharing this, so that it's easier. So right now I think of like, oh gosh, I have to make a video, and it's like this struggle.
Yeah.
I did that last week. It took me 2 hours.
Yeah. Take me into that struggle for a moment. So here's the mindset. The mindset is, I have to make this video. So let's stay with that concept for a second. I have to make this video because
I have to make this video. The struggle comes from thinking that I have to do this like everyone else. Like I have to do this to be relevant on social media and attract people. And that's where the like stuckness, I feel, stuck, and that it's hard.
Yep.
So
you know what Seth Godin says about that, right?
What?
You know what Seth Godin says about that, right?
No, I don't. What?
So all of his concepts are really based around this idea of like being remarkable, how to be remarkable, right? How to be the purple cow when everyone else is black and white.
Yeah.
You want to be the purple cow.
Yeah.
And I think rather than how do I be relevant and how do I do what seems like it's working for everybody else, which by the way, doesn't mean it won't work for you, because making videos could actually be a hugely powerful tool for you. But making them with a story of, oh, I've got to make this and this is heavy and hard and everyone's doing this and that's like 100 extra pounds on your back. And no one produces their best work in that state. You don't want to be in that state. And that's why my work is always about bringing a person back to this place of understanding that the most productive, the most motivational, the most inspiring, the most creative place you can be in, or sort of thing you can do for yourself, is focus on the state you're in with you. Whether you make a video, whether you make a 1-sentence post, whether you're doing a talk in person, those things matter far less from the state you're in while you're doing those things. That's what I want you to really be focused on as you move forward in your work. So you have a moment where you sit down and go, I have to make a video. And then the mindset, the real tangible work becomes, nope, I don't have to make a video. There's 15 different things I could do. What do I want to do? Do I want to make a video? And if I want to make a video, I'm going to have the kind of relationship with myself now. I'm going to value myself and my work enough now to go, I want to make a video. Okay, what do you want to talk about? How long do you want it to be? Like, we want you in the energy state of, this moment feels like something I really want to give. And that's very different from, I'm going to make this because I hope I get that.
Right. I see it.
We want you to get that. We want you to get a whole lot of that. But from a state of, what do I have to say? What's the way I want to say it that makes me feel so energized and good? What's my sweet spot in this moment? And it can be different all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what this work with me is about, is how does Michelle tap into that state with herself as consistently as you can. And some days when you're in the trenches of like, this has taken me 2 hours and oh my God, this feels so hard and heavy, you got to stop doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Close up shop.
Yeah.
Go for a walk, let yourself off the hook, right? Like you have the work is, how do I get in the sweet spot with myself?
Yeah.
And then let's see what the work, what the result of the work is then. What do I want to give to this moment now? And look, these principles that I'm sharing with you, this is how everyone gets stuck, because we are all conditioned, all of us, to go, I'm going to do these 5 things. And when I do these 5 things in this specific way, then hopefully I'll get that.
Yeah.
That can work. It does work sometimes. That can bring clients. It can bring money. But it also is a way of operating that is coming from the deeper story of, once I get that, then I'll feel better about myself.
Yes.
That's the backwards mentality to happiness, abundance, inspiration. You know all this already because you've worked with me before. I'm just kind of repeating it back to you. Your work is like, I've got something to say. I have to have blinders on to a large degree to how other people are saying it, to the methods other people are using. I'm going to rock this curly hair. I'm going to own my story. I just used this example with another client the other day, like standing in mountain pose in yoga. I feel like this is such a good sort of like metaphor and like helpful state, internally to be in. I'm going to stand in mountain pose. I've got my 2 feet and my core solid underneath me. And I'm going to go, what do I have to say today and how do I want to say it?
Mm-hmm.
That's the state. So let me ask you, does this feel different?
Oh, yeah.
I hope so. Otherwise, I suck.
It also feels like it's coming from within me, and out, instead of like, okay, well, everyone else is doing it, this way. And then it's like down and molding into what I need to do. And it feels so awkward and difficult and not authentic.
If the only takeaway from this conversation is simply the practice now of paying attention to how you're feeling when you're doing something, things will change. If you are checking in with yourself and going, does this feel hard? Does this feel heavy? Does this feel like I can't wait until I'm done with it?
Yeah.
Then guess what? You owe it to yourself and your business, because you care. Let yourself care the way you do care about it. Right? And that's the challenging work in the moment, because in some ways it's almost easier to just kind of like plow through it and be like, just do it, so that then I can feel good about myself, or then I can say, oh, check that box, I made the video. The truth is, you don't just want to make a video. The truth is, you want to make a video that resonates. You want to make a video that has a meaningful impact. And your best chances of doing that are to first get in that state yourself, where you go, this is meaningful to me. I really care. And I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to say what I have to say from that state. And that takes more courage. And that takes, that's not, in some ways it's like, it's both, how do I say this? It doesn't always feel easy in the beginning, but when you get into that practice of operating from that state, you then realize that, oh my God, I've been doing things the hard way the whole time. No wonder why I'm not getting the results that I want.
And no wonder why it seems so scary and like large, huge, and
and heavy and stressful and overwhelming and all of it. Yeah. You are not supposed to make the video like everyone else. You have to follow what feels like it's the right move for you next. Mm-hmm. Okay. Does that make sense?
Totally. And it feels lighter, and it feels like that's where I want to go with, like,
yeah.
How these women are going to see me.
I think what helps too is having this word to come back to, like an anchoring word for yourself. And I know that the word, like, I know that the experience that you want to give a woman and that you do give a woman has deep meaning. Maybe that's your word. I don't know, like, pick whatever you want, but I think the strategy becomes have your anchor word. And I think it's helpful to choose one where you say, how do I want a woman to feel when I'm serving somebody? It doesn't even matter who it is. When I'm serving somebody, how do I want my person to feel on the other side of doing business with me, on the other side of that connection with me? And when that word comes up, that's your anchor word. So you go, every time I sit down to do my work. Now, look, this isn't about perfection because we're human beings. We're not robots. It isn't going to be pretty all the time. It isn't going to be easy all the time. But this is your tool now. You have a new tool, right? To go, every time I sit down to write a blog post, to say something, to talk to a client, to write something, whatever, I help myself by anchoring into that feeling state that I want the other person on the receiving end to feel.
Right.
That's really powerful. I don't think that's something they teach in business school.
Yeah, and it's not something that, photographers are thinking about, I'd say most of them of like, it's just, oh, I'm going to take your picture.
Yeah.
And
I can see, I know you. I will confess I know you before this phone call. However, I can see and feel right now how much you care. It's so obvious and it's so compelling.
Yeah.
That's one of your superpowers.
And I think that's what I want so badly to come across, that I care so much, like that, yes, this is going to be an experience that we're both going to have and, create. And I care so much about, giving women these experiences.
Yes. So I think part of your work, and then we're going to wrap up so we don't go too long, but I think part of your work is going to be around this concept of not trying so hard. And that, I don't know, it's coming up just like very strongly for me about you, is like, you already know what you want to say. You're very clear about it. You have a clear story. You care so deeply. You've already been doing it for a while. So you've got the whole thing already. I think that now it's sitting down and having this moment first with yourself where it's like, there is no right or wrong. I don't care how anyone else is doing it. I care so much about how someone feels when they're in business with me. And now it's about no longer trying. It's about letting yourself just do the work, and I know that's like, what the hell, like that. It's in some ways that's like a higher spiritual philosophical concept, but don't try so hard. You've already spent years trying and putting in sweat. You've paid those dues.
Thank you.
Right? You are off the hook. Stop trying so hard.
I'm trying to tell my boyfriend, gosh.
You have paid your dues. I'll write you a little prescription. But that's what it is. I joke about it, but it is sort of like a prescription for self-permission. It's permission to stop trying so hard. Stop sweating so much. You have this. Now it's entering a different state with yourself, one that I consider a deep state of worthiness. Which is like, let yourself work the way you want to work. I know it's not as easy as just do it, but sometimes it is. Sometimes it is.
Okay. I like that.
Tell me, and there may be obviously more takeaways after this conversation, but tell me what right now you feel like is the biggest takeaway, maybe both in mindset and like a tangible that you want to kind of carry into how you are going to operate this next week.
Well, the first mindset was just when we started talking about like, oh, I'm just behind the camera. Like, I see what I've been doing for the past 10 years of this work, of leading up to this point. And it has been fighting. It has been doing the work, building the foundation, building my confidence, and So I can see how I've been telling myself that I've been hiding, which is not correct.
Yes,
So that
exactly.
feels so good. I mean, I just want to like hug myself.
Yep.
And then
I'm writing these notes here because when you watch this back, you're going to have them.
Okay. All right, cool. And then what was the second one of like little?
So that's sort of a big mindset shift, right? Is almost just letting go of the story that was never even true to begin with.
Yeah.
So that's one. There's like big relief in that.
It's so much lighter. Yeah. For sure.
I love that. And then the other piece is like, let's talk about maybe a couple like tangibles in terms of like, does something jump out as a new way that you want to now approach your work?
Yeah. So we talked about like, last week, Friday, I made a video on it, and so I was like, oh, maybe I should do another video this Friday and make it like, but then I started to feel like, oh gosh, that was so hard, So, and now that we discussed about where I need to be with myself before I create something, that's what I need to think about. And that's to get into that state before I feel like I have to go do something for my business.
Yep. And so that's one of them. And then the other one is really like gaining clarity and holding on to your anchor word, right? So clarity.
Yes. And I think that would definitely help, when I speak to clients, because like I'll have these, phone consultations with them to figure out, if we're a good fit and what they're looking for. And I think that would be really great for me and to have that anchoring, word or phrase.
Yeah.
Speaking of, because I do want to ask those questions and get a little bit deeper, even if it's just, we're meeting for the first time, but then I can see where they would feel like, oh,
yes,
because this is the initial meeting of like, why should I hire her over this photographer or this photographer?
Yes. When you are thinking about any potential new offerings, come back to this place of your anchor word and come back to what your brand, what your business stands for. And if you haven't done it already, and you probably have, but if you haven't done it already, like almost just reminding yourself, like sometimes one of the hardest things is forcing ourselves. I won't say force. That's a bad word. Sometimes that's not a positive, empowering word. Sometimes one of the hardest things is allowing ourselves to prioritize 2 or 3 that, what we stand for. Pick 2 or 3 values, right? Like your company shouldn't be about everything and it shouldn't be for everybody. You should know exactly what you stand for. And you do know that. So now I think it's just holding that more in the front of your mind as you're operating more. And when you when you have these different creative ideas, like, oh, I could have them take like a quiz, or we could do a challenge. Anything could potentially be a wonderfully meaningful, great idea, but check back in with yourself and say, is this a reflection of what in my core I stand for with my business? Like if I'm going to have her do, and I'm not saying that this is what your quiz was at all. I'm just kind of using this as an example. But if I'm going to kind of have my person do like almost like a very light, superficially, like bubbly kind of quiz that lots of other people maybe do, I don't know if that's you. You know what I mean? So it doesn't mean that couldn't work, right? Like I do not have all the perfect answers by any means, but I just want to give you this sort of framework of like, I think the more that you're in love with the choices you're making and feeling like they're right on point for what you stand for in your business, the easier things are going to flow to you. You don't need to do 10 or 10, 15 things that everyone else is doing. Find the things that feel like are such a true representation of you and your business. Yes, you're going to attract your woman that way.
Yeah, and I think this is exactly what I've been looking for this whole time. I mean, for years, Lori, like of just what is it that, I can, that not other photographers, boudoir photographers are doing that will make it so special to me. And this is what I've been like searching for. So
you have it. You already have it. It's now allowing yourself to work from that state. Right?
Yes.
And it's always easier for someone else to sometimes see us more clearly than we can see ourselves, right? Like we're in the thick of our work all the time.
Yes.
We're constantly in it. I can say the same for me. I'm sure it would be so much easier for someone else to go, I know exactly why you're stuck. But for me to figure it out is like, oh my God, like right? It's so much harder to do it for ourselves, which is why this kind of situation, is so important and also so meaningful. And I'm so grateful that you shared this.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
So I hope this was helpful.
Oh, super.
All right, good. We're gonna follow up. We're gonna do this again. We're gonna do take 2 of this episode, and we're gonna check back in and see what's happening. Okay. We're really gonna challenge you.
I know you do.
All right, Michelle, I will talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.